There.
There we are. Hello, this is Tara Byrne from Under 30 Changemakers, and I am here today with Kai Hubner, and he is in Germany right now. And Kai is he was the president of Enactus, and we met through a mutual friend, Jacob, and he worked with him on $1 glasses. And when we met, we were in Life Kitchen in Palo Alto, and he asked me, how are you measuring your impact right now in your organization? And I knew what impact was in theory, but I wasn't really putting it into practice. We didn't have any systems in place to be able to measure impact on a regular basis. So Kai is here with us today to teach us what he taught me. And I hope that you will learn a lot from him just as much as I have. So Kai, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, thanks. It's a pleasure. And welcome, everybody. Just one quick notion. I have been president of Enactus worldwide. I don't want anybody to get pissed off because they might do so if they see that. But we'll get back to Enactus later anyway. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope some of you guys maybe find something interesting throughout the talk. I'll just set up the screen share of a little presentation real quick. To guide you guys through the little workshop today.
And I will return back later for a Q&A. Thank you, Kai.
There. All right. So yeah, we wanted to talk about impact measurement today. But before we can actually talk about impact measurement, we have to think about impact. What the heck is impact? Businesses have been solving problems of people for decades, or even centuries, and we've seen pretty amazing solutions throughout the past decades, like cars, like planes, like computers, and services, and apps, software like Evernote, and all these products and solutions have improved lives of a lot of people. Amazingly much throughout the past decades. We'll get into how they did later. Yeah, but the question is, how did these products and how did these solutions actually improve the life of the individual? How did it change something in their life, and how did it create a better life, a better situation for life for these people? Businesses have measured their success in dollars, in revenues, in turnover for basically forever. They have also measured customer satisfaction and also have some measurements in place for how well products actually solve problems, but they don't really look at what this solution and the product actually means for their customers, for the people that interact with these products and solutions. And we right now live in a time where the overwhelming majorities of citizens in Western countries has basically got enough. They are well fed, they have shelter, they have education. So living is basically not about surviving in most parts of the world anymore. Pretty remarkable that the way businesses work today oftentimes facilitate exploitation in order to achieve greater richnesses. So we just asked ourselves back then in Palo Alto, why would we at a certain point get even richer, own several houses, own a yacht, own a private jet, in a world that gives us access to all these things through the internet right now? In a world that has no need for owning stuff because you can easily use it. Right, there is no real reason beyond probably tribalism and dogmas that make us believe that it's good to own stuff. Whereas, as Tyler Durden in Fight Club already said, things you own end up owning you. So if you can basically travel to any place, if you can have a private driver at any time, if you can use the most awesome mansions and houses all over the world, if you can drive a private yacht, and use all that stuff through the internet, why would you want to have millions and millions of dollars and own all these things? There's no real sense behind that, right? But there is one sense behind owning that much money, or let's say making that much money. Yeah, that's for no sense behind making that money, besides the fact that you are like that dude here, like Elon Musk, who is actually making humanity advance, who's making us take the next step and enhancing the life of other people with businesses like Tesla or SpaceX. Tesla is a really, really good example for a huge and mature impact enterprise, because it impacts the environment and it impacts the people who use it in a really comfortable way, and yeah, releasing a lot of stress, making driving way more comfy, way more easy, and way more intelligent at some point. So that's basically how we got to the point behind, man, we need to do something for people thinking impact and measuring impact and designing and creating impact. Which brings us back to the point, what is impact? What are we talking about here? And impact as we see it and as we define it is basically the consequence of the solution applied to a pain point in someone's life. Yeah, nice definition, soak it in. What does it mean? Like, what does it mean in practice? Let's take a look back at the products we thought about at the beginning. And look at the car, for example. I mean, the pain people experienced before cars existed was a pretty huge lack of mobility. I mean, they had horses, they also had trains, but let's assume you as an individual wanted to go from one city to the next city, which is 60 miles away, because you have a job there, because the city you live in doesn't have enough jobs. You couldn't get there. You couldn't get that job. You couldn't like go there within a day and come back the same day. And right now, having a car, you have been granted the ability to commute. Like, you can easily make these 120 miles in one day, forth and back, and go work there. A little bit different, but same thing applies to the plane and commercial airlines. Lack of mobility, but in a huge different, like in a completely different dimension. You couldn't easily go overseas, see your family in Europe, for example. Let's say one part of your family lived in Europe, one part lived in the States. You had to go by ship and sail the ocean and be away for months and not even knowing like if you really get there at some point of time. And right now you can cross the ocean within hours and be connected to all of the beloved people you have on this planet. If you look at Evernote as a service, like I, for example, personally had a complete chaos within all the information and all the pieces of knowledge and all the pieces of interesting facts I saved at some I don't know, Word files and had handwritten at notebooks, whatever. And it actually impacts my life by giving me the ability to find all the information I have somewhere and use them and actually work with that information in no time. And if you look at the computer, I mean, there's tons of pains we could talk about right now, but one of the biggest pains in our world still is the lack of education. And the way computers actually impact people experiencing that lack is computers give them the ability to learn. They can easily access educational information all over the globe. They can, with all the MOOCs, take courses from Stanford, from Harvard, from wherever they want and get educated. And this impact, education, ability to learn, brings a lot of impact behind the direct impact of being able to learn with it. If we look at ability to learn, the first thing that happens is, of course, we get educated. We have the chance to gain education. But what do we need education for? Right, for work, for jobs, for making money, and for doing the things we always wanted to do, which gives us fulfillment. So the secondary impacts, or the secondary impact layer that lies behind being granted the ability to learn, is way bigger, and the impact on the life of that person gaining the ability to learn is huge, incredibly huge, just by applying that solution computer to the lack of education. Long story for an intro to impact. How do we measure it? Like, how do we actually see how and if our products, our businesses impact the people we work for and work with, our whole, let's say, business ecosystem? And we talked about Enactus in a nutshell before. It's a pretty huge students organization working on social entrepreneurship projects all over the globe. And they broke the life of people down into 5, they call it livelihood assets. We define it as livelihood capital, which is basically financial, natural, societal or community, human, and infrastructure. Oh wow, I'm sharing. I stopped the screen sharing. Physical, social, natural, human, and financial. Yeah. There we go again. And by looking at your target group, your customer, and their life in detail, you can actually break their life down to these 5 categories, which you will also find in the worksheet that has been uploaded and provided alongside with that workshop. And that worksheet is going to provide you with all these different subcategories within these livelihood capitals. And when you started looking at the lives of your customers, you can easily map them out, for example, on a mind map, and just look at what's there, what's probably missing. You pretty easily identify the pieces or the categories, the items, let's say, within these capital categories that might be not as good as they should be, where your customers, your target group, might lack something in their life. And this is where your measurement system comes in. Let's make it practical. Let's say your product is that thing here. It's a computer, a really, really cheap computer that also people and kids in third world countries can afford, that give you access to education, as we previously discussed. Some of you might know the project One Education. The lacks in the livelihoods of these people is lack of a job later when they are out of school, or probably they never got into school. So lack of a job and thus lack of money. And these lacks in their livelihood are actually caused by a lack of education. Because without being properly educated, the only thing they could do is work on the field, grow some crops, but never really get into a job that provides them a lot of money. And that basic lack, these lacks in the livelihood capital categories, financial and human in that case, can be solved. Can be solved by your product, the One Education computer. And a regular company would do that, would produce it, would solve these problems, would sell the computers, and would afterwards go public and be like, wow, we sold 10,000 computers and we made $3 million revenue, which are no real numbers in that case, I just made them up. But this is how regular companies would state their impact, would state what they've done with their product to help people. This doesn't actually say anything about whether that product or not really helped these people. I mean, if we look at lack of education that causes lack of jobs, just giving them a computer and just selling 10,000 of these doesn't really help anybody. So for really ensuring that we make impact, that we solve these problems and enhance the livelihoods of these kids by, in the end, providing them jobs, we need to look closer at what happens at their life after they got the computer and after they started using it. And a good way to look at this is to see a couple of years later what happened to these guys. What actually did they make out of using this computer? And let's say the numbers are true and 10,000 devices have been sold. And a couple of years later, One Education comes back to these kids and looks at where they are at that day and notices, wow, these 10,000 kids actually made a college degree online. They had access to education. They used this access to really get educated. And thus, they do have jobs. They do have a good income. They do have a pretty good wage too. And that's the actual impact behind applying this solution computer to the pain, no access to education. If, in that case, they come back and see it didn't really work, nobody got educated, they didn't really make impact. And that's a crucial fact in here. That's a crucial thing that happens to many companies that really start looking at their impact, that they see, okay, wow, we intended to create an impact at some point of time, but it didn't really happen because we kind of got a solution, but we didn't really look at how that solution works in the environment. Maybe these guys don't have access to electricity, so they can't use the computers. Maybe these guys don't have access to the internet. So there's a couple of other things that have to be there, that have to be provided in order to make the solution work the way it should work. But basically, impact measures in that case would be number of college degrees and income, total income of these people, or total number of jobs they got. To sum it up, we experience a lack of education that causes a lack of money, that causes a lack of jobs, which is the pain these people experience. We got a solution, which is a super cheap computer, and that solution applied to that pain, applied to the people's lives, causes an impact, which is access to education, which is number of college degrees, educated people, which is jobs created, and which is a way higher income that these people actually experience. So that was a really quick intro on how these livelihood assets can be used to look at what your company basically does, what your company creates as an impact for the people that interact with your products, with your services. But what does that measurement, what does that impact, the look at, or the fact that you look at the impact your company makes actually help you succeed, actually help you make or build a successful company, a successful project. And well, if you think back of the products we discussed before, especially the services, think about a service that you love. Think about a service that you use every day. Will you continue using it? Very likely, right? Will you pay for it using that service? It's pretty likely too, because these services might make your life a lot easier and a lot better than it would be without these services. Like in that case, for me, for example, the companies we spoke about before. And the fact that these companies create an impact, which is probably not as massive as giving me education and thus the possibility to work at some point of time, but still taking a lot of stress away from my everyday life, which is giving me mental health, which is giving me the possibility to relax. This fact is making me love the products, making me advocate them to my friends, making me buying the services for a long time. And that's because they actually impact my life. So if you look at your products and the work you're doing and look at the impact that this work gives or provides to people that use your products, use your services, you'll have a pretty good chance that these people will like your products even better and be an even bigger fan of your products and will continue using these products if the impact on their lives is getting bigger by using them. So impact measurement is not only a really good tool to see what's actually happening through your products or services being applied, but also a really good tool to improve your products, to improve the success of your products and improve, yeah, the impact of your products to your customers' lives, which makes everybody happy in the end. Yeah. Coming to a personal project I'm just working on to display a little better how I approached the whole topic. Linguedo is more or less a language school. A good old friend of mine developed a really cool language learning concept a couple of years ago that teaches you German in that case with an online platform we built and live Skype coaching 1 hour a day that is kind of like improvisation theater. So you apply the words and the grammar you've learned previously that day to your actual language and use it by building little stories. So that works pretty good. But the fascinating thing behind the Linguedo project as it is right now is we looked at a huge problem we face in Germany. I don't actually know how you guys have it in the States right now, but here in Germany we have a huge lack of nurses. The hospitals don't have enough nurses to fill all the positions. That means a lot of stress for the actual nurses working in the hospitals. The patients, the patients don't have as good treatments as they could, and there's a lot of stress caused by that huge lack. And we actually identified that nurses in countries like Italy and Hungary, which are pretty close to Germany, they are part of the European Union too, don't have jobs, or if they have jobs, they don't earn a lot of money. Nurses in Hungary, for example, work 12 to 14 hours a day the whole week and get 600 euros a month, which is not enough to work in Hungary either. So if they have a job, they are really badly paid. If they don't have a job, they have no income at all. So we have these two needs, money, jobs, income, and a community need, which is nurses in hospitals, because otherwise patients can't get treated. And the interesting thing is the only thing that these nurses from Hungary and Italy need in order to work in Germany is the actual language. They have everything they need skill-wise. They're like the apprenticeships they have there in Italy. It's a bachelor course. Even is completely fine to work in Germany skill-wise, but you need to speak fluent German in order to work in a German hospital, because quite clearly otherwise you can't understand the doctors, can't understand your colleagues, can't understand the patients. So what we actually do is give these nurses the language, teach them German for free, because they have no job, they have no income, they just need the language. So we teach them German for free and let the hospitals actually pay for it, which means we use one need which is financially really well backed and solve another need through that by just using that money to give away a skill for free. The interesting thing here, and I didn't talk about that before, is that impact is not only positive all the time. Impact can, of course, also be negative. Your company, your business organizations, your business operations can have a negative impact on people. In the white paper, you'll see that we define this kind of impact as impairment. So negative impact, negative consequences on people's lives is impairment in our language, let's say. And impairment is a pretty important part to look at as a result of your business operations too. Because if you create a lot of impact, a lot of positive impact to people's lives, but create even more impairment by creating that impact, you should really reconsider working that way. I mean, if you sum it up, your impact is still negative in that case. So it's one thing to create impact. It's another thing to mitigate impairment, to not let impairment happen. And in our case, to really make the nurses' lives better, it was really important to not impair their lives in the same time we make them better. So if we look at the nurses' lives right now, they are in their home countries. They probably don't work, or they work but get really badly paid. And look at their lives, getting them over to Germany. They do have a well-paid job then. They do have security. They do have an income. But they probably, all of a sudden, have no family around, no friends around, no, let's say, community they are integrated into. They don't really have a regular life in that moment. So if you look at their lives and their livelihoods, they are massively impaired by making the move over to Germany. And in the same time, they probably don't have a driver's license. They can't even go from point A to B that easily, even though cars exist now. We just learned that they can't use them. So also their mobility is highly impaired in that case. They can't easily go over to their family. So we looked at the whole impairment dynamics behind getting nurses from other countries over here, and actually designed a whole, let's say, impairment mitigation system around that, in order to really integrate them into society and into the community as early as possible. We take them over here and actually made contracts with elderly care homes, so that they can, as soon as they speak a proper German, which is not as good to get accredited as a nurse in Germany, but still good enough for communication, good enough for working with people, good enough for speaking to old people, which is completely fine. We get them over here and let them work in elderly care homes to perfectionize their German and to integrate, to find friends, to get used to the German culture, which is pretty weird at some point of time. Who's ever been to that nice country here probably knows that. To get a new life actually started, get hobbies, get a nice community around, which is actually making them want to stay. And also, for example, negotiated special holiday deals with the hospitals, so that these nurses can, for those who want, take complete weeks off to see their family, and several times a year, because you can actually build the shifts they work in a way that at some point of time there's a huge pause between the different shifts. And nurses actually asked for that, and we are still making it happen, and in some cases we actually made it happen. So that's a way we also looked at how can we, by accident, impair the lives of the people that we actually only wanted to impact. And in the end, we have an impact measurement system in place that actually measures the total numbers of nurses long-term. Long-term meaning they stay half a year and longer, because that's kind of a critical period for them in order to integrate, in order to really get settled. And if they are over the 6 months, there's a pretty good chance for them to stay. So the total number of long-term employed nurses in Germany, which is our kind of community measure that is the impact for the pain points, not enough nurses in this country. And we do have the measurements, total number of jobs provided and total number of income increase in comparison to before. So we don't actually measure the total income we have gotten for the nurses, because it doesn't really tell anything about the situation before and the situation now. What we do measure is the increase of income they have actually witnessed in their life. And that's the way we built our measurement system in my current project, Linguido. And Back in Palo Alto, when Tara and all the other guys, and I don't know, Michael, whether you're here tonight. Cheers to Michael, because he was one of the reasons that talk actually happened. Back in Loras Park in San Francisco, we thought about, actually we should create a society, create a group of leaders, a group of people that are dedicated to create impact instead of create more money, create greater richness, and want to create a community that builds companies that have the purpose to create impact and that are driven and led by impact measures instead of money measures. And one person who's actually successfully done that thing is Bart Hartman. He's a Dutchman. Some of the Dutch people on here might know him. And I would actually, as final words, just want to, ask you guys to join that movement exactly, because he says to solve the big problems of this world, companies must transform themselves into impact enterprises. And if the big ones don't do that, maybe we can do that as small companies and start that movement and make the world a little better place. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching that. And I'm super happy to listen to some of your questions in our Q&A now. Back to Tara.
Hey, Kai. Thank you so much for giving that talk and teaching us about impact. We will go to Q&A, and I also wanted to have Francis here as well. So Francis, Kai, and I have worked on this since April. It's actually the longest project we've had in Under 30 for anything content-wise. Usually it's like a month or less, and we kind of work on it 2 weeks in advance. And for this project, as we started scratching the surface on impact, we realized there was a lot of jargon, and we had to translate a lot of the material that we were coming across. So I would love to also have Francis introduce herself, and she's been our designer and project manager on impact measurement workshops. So Francis.
Hi everyone, I'm Francis. So I'm a design consultant, and I've been working closely with Tara and Kai and really picking at their brains. And it's not just about the research, it's about our collaborative thoughts and efforts into understanding impact in a simple, clean way. I'm hoping that comes across in the white paper and also in the worksheet, and also in Kai's talk just now.
All the cool icons are your job, and all the cool design was your job. So, and actually picking up thoughts and getting all of that out of our brains was pretty much your job. So thank you a lot for that.
Yes, thank you so much, Francis.
Thank you so much, Francis.
Kai, could you hear?
Kai, could you hear? Actually,
I think you wouldn't happen to have headphones, would you?
You wouldn't happen to have headphones.
Sorry,
it's echoing. At least maybe on mine. Oh, my sound was just echoing. Also, yeah, I guess just mute when people aren't talking. But okay. So I would love to move to Q&A. We have people's questions. There was one person's question, Soraya. She asked, do you believe that farming is actually the education in some areas of the world? And there's another, so she said, you mentioned that without an education, all the people can do and grow crops and farms. Do you believe, or do you not believe, that farming is the form of education in some regions?
Yes, farming is definitely a form of education in some regions. The question here is more of the impact or the improvement that could potentially happen in these people's lives. If you look at the livelihoods of farmers in rural areas somewhere in Africa, they actually live to survive every day. Like, they grow crops and that's it. And if there's if there's a dry season or something, and if they somehow get a bad soil or their plants get diseases, they probably don't have anything to eat and they might starve. So that's the situation like it is there. Whereas if just imagine a little farmer's kid in Rwanda gets a chance to be educated in computer systems, in coding and informatics, and that kid just can jump on some Upwork projects for anybody in the world and can earn some serious dollars. That might be a massive improvement to that kid's life, or that young person's life in that case, later on, and also to his or her family's life and all the people around that person. So that's what I was basically saying without education, the only thing these people can actually do is, in these parts of the world, farming, and that means long-term no real improvement to their status quo.
Okay, great answer. And then we can go on to, someone just asked, what was the school you were talking about in the beginning? Is it Connectus?
Oh, the organization is Enactus. It's ENACTUS. It's basically a word made out of entrepreneurial action, us, and it's basically a students' organization. It's active in, don't let me lie, but 34 countries in the world, I think, and the United States are by far the biggest country organization, with, I think, around 400 to 500 schools taking part in that. And yeah, just check out their website and check out their projects. They do some pretty amazing stuff around the world, and the way they measure the actual project impact is pretty cool. So the teams and the projects who do it right have a pretty accurate way of displaying what happened through their work.
Great. And then we also have one more question. Based on the observation, is there any correlation between maturity of social innovation ecosystem and organizations' adoption of impact measurement? So do you think that it should be, maybe, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but as an organization like Under 30 who's just about to turn 3, is it something that you start off with, or is it something that you adapt and work into your systems later on?
I think both, to answer your question. Well, I think what we can observe, without having numbers at hand, but what we can observe is the more people actually care about making an impact in that world. I mean, I don't know how old Grameen Bank is right now, but I think Muhammad Yunus is around for a couple of years now. Like this microfinancing bank he built a couple of years ago. Companies like that kind of grew out of nothing within the past couple of years. And the more we see companies making a positive change, creating a positive change, the more companies, old big companies, actually try to adopt kind of impact measures to their business behaviors. They do have CSR reports, they do implement the triple bottom line, which is people, profit, planet. So we care about people, the society, we care about the environment, planet, we care about making profit, which is, by the way, still a huge point in all of that. Without making money, without making revenues, without making profits, you won't be able to sustain your business operations. So impact is like probably the most important thing, but just as important is that you at least make small surpluses that you can grow, because without making more money, without making more profits, you won't be able to grow, and you won't be able to grow your impact in the end. So making money is really, really important part of that. But still, so they measure their triple bottom line, they measure their CSR activities, but it'll be more like what we can observe right now is that it's mostly like the example I made about the cheap laptops. When I talked about how they could display what they did, companies will be like, okay, we sold 10,000 computers to people in need, or we gave 10,000 computers to people in need, which is not actually saying anything about whether or not they had impact on these people, which is just stating the fact that they did something which could create impact at some point of time. But if it did, nobody knows. So impact measures that companies have at this point of time are really, really insufficient to really say something about the change they created and they might create in the future. And this is something that I would really love to see. I would really love to see companies implementing that kind of measures and using that kind of measures to, yeah, make a change in the end. What Mr. What was his name again? Bart Hartman already said.
I would like to add my 2 cents too.
Sure.
So the original question was whether doing impact measurement makes a difference depending on how mature. I don't think there should be a difference whether you're starting out or you're very late in the game. Some sort of impact measurement, some sort of measurement in general is important. What we really need to focus on is communicatable, marketable measurement. And the point is that you want to be able to tell the people you're working with and the people who are taking this product how you are getting to where you are getting to in the first place. And that's through metrics. That's through measuring and trying to figure out what specifically it is leading you to those conclusions that you come up with. And when you come up with that idea like, oh, body fat percentage is a measurement of health and well-being, then you can be like, oh, but wait, body fat is not inclusive enough, or like maybe how we measure it is not great enough, and we improve that process of measuring, improve that process of actually defining and creating better impact.
Yeah.
I love that. I really love that response, Francis. I think that's really smart. Also touching on the marketable aspect of impact, that was how I was originally introduced to it a few years ago. And I think it's really important to be able to talk to your team about how you are impacting other people, because it motivates them and it also gives them a sense of why they're doing what they're doing so that they can keep pushing forward. Kai, is there anything else? I have a few personal questions I would like to ask about Under 30, but is there anything else that you would like to go over?
I think so far so good. If nobody else has got a question at that point of time, I definitely invite you guys to taking part in the discussion and probably let all of that soak in a little and think about it and think about things that come up after reflecting about all these insights. And yeah, add me on Facebook if you like. Start a discussion. We do have the Under 30 Changemakers Facebook group. We do have a lot of possibilities to continue the discussion about impact measurement and creating impact. So yeah, love to see that.
Yeah, so one thing that happened when we started talking about this is I posed a question to my community on Facebook and asked, what kind of metrics do you find are worth measuring? It's been a tricky question that we chose to not really tackle in the white paper and the worksheet, but it's still very much on my mind, and particularly with communities. We've found that we normally try to measure other people's impact because it is a collective. So what would you personally suggest for something like that in terms of figuring out, a lot of the responses were figure out what your end goal is, but with a community that's growing, it's hard to discern what would make the most impact. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Ideally, if you start a project that creates impact, like if you're at the very beginning, you will want to analyze the pain points at the people you start the project for and see how you can actually solve that pain. This is what Francis perfectly described a couple of minutes ago, like the way to get there. And I think this is the crucial part if you think about what's worth measuring. In terms of Under 30 Changemakers, I think there's a couple of impacts that Under 30 Changemakers generates for or creates for the community, for the members. And I mean, as long as you have the current organizational purpose in mind, which might be different from the one in 5 years or in 10 years, but if you have the current organizational purpose in mind and the, let's say, current solutions and consequences of these solutions that Under 30 Changemakers provides to the members, I would dig into how I can measure that process of improving the lives of the members. You know what I mean? Like, is that kind of making sense? More or less what you just said, Francis. Really look at the goal that I do have with my current program, with my current operations, for the people I'm doing it for, and measure how well I do reach that goal, coming from the point these people start before being involved in the program, or before being involved in the service, in the group. And yeah, so in a nutshell, I would definitely always look at my goal for the lives of the people I'm working for, and try to somehow measure the difference in their lives from status quo to that goal at a certain point of time. This might change within years or within months within your business operation if the goal changes. But yeah, that will be my approach.
I can add my answer too. So I really like what you said. It's very high level and very a beautiful kind of vision. More practically speaking, because I've been working with Tara additionally on thinking about doing a design team, and also on creating initiatives and organizing the initiatives for Under 30. You have to think about what metrics do you want to establish for that overall impact, but then also what metrics do you need to establish before in order to measure other metrics. So for example, when it comes to design team, I think about, oh, we want our work to be quality. We want to make sure everyone deserves great design. But in order to do that, we need to have an idea of what initiatives are currently being done, and like what their dates are doing and how much time they're being spent on. So that's an initial metric that's needed in order to build upon to create that larger impact. Yeah.
I like that answer. Yeah, Francis and I have been working together since we started this project, and she's speaking from experience, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Does anyone else have anything to add to this? I will also add before we go, definitely check out the white paper and the worksheet, and print out the worksheet if you can. We put a lot of thought and effort into it, and I hope it helps you in your current or future organizations.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to sign off. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening and watching that. And goodbye.